Retired president of Fox Sports Networks and the Big Ten Network co-founder, media consultant, Twitter aficionado, Bob Thompson, who has been a great guest for us to help understand media rights and just television and et cetera, joins us. Paul Catalina, Craig, and David Smoak on 365 Sports. Bob, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. So what does all this direct-to-consumer really mean, in your opinion? How long before you think that occurs, and how does that affect the consumer himself or herself?
First of all, great to be here again, guys. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
It's a changing landscape, and I think everybody recognizes that. You've had what used to be known as the cable or satellite bundle, which kind of peaked out at about 95 million, 100 million homes. It's down significantly, down to about 60 million homes. People just, cutting the cord or yanking the satellite dish down off the roof, one or the other. They've just gone away. Now, part of that has been recouped, those networks that are in the bundle, by the addition of what are called virtual multi-channel video program distributors, or VMPD. VPD. And those are your typical YouTube TV, Hulu Plus Live TV, Direct TV Stream, Fubo, Sling, things like that. And they offer a cable type package of channels. So that's about 15 million. So we're at this like 75 million total who are still in the bundle. And that's what everybody's keeping an eye on, because if it continues to erode at the rate it's been eroding, which is about 5 million homes per year over the last several years, pretty soon, 26, 27, you're going to get down to that 50, 55 million homes still in the bundle, receiving channels like ESPN and FS1 and Fox News and CNN, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's when I really think, and some people who are a whole lot smarter than me think, that you'll see people like ESPN probably flip the switch on a new service that would be a mirror of the ESPN service you receive as part of the bundle. As you know, right now they have a DTC offering with direct to consumer, which is ESPN Plus. But for the most part, the program is distinctly different than what's on ESPN, the bundled channel. And so this new effort would be literally a mirror of what you see on ESPN. And, nobody's quite sure what the price would be. My guess is it's probably upwards of $25 a month. They try and keep the bundles live as long as possible because it's been a very, very profitable distribution method for them over the years. And they have other channels, obviously, besides ESPN, the folks at Disney. And, the longer they can keep that bundle together, the happier they are. And I'm sure a lot of the other networks would be very happy to have that as well. And I do think it bottoms at some point. I mean, there's a lot of people who just don't want to deal with all the streaming services and things like that. And they like the convenience of the bundle as opposed to having to jump around from app to app to app. So I think those will continue to grow. And I think distributors will continue to put more product on streaming services. I mean, program sellers will continue to put more product on streaming services. And, it's going to continue to change, but definitely we're getting towards an inflection point here in the next few years.
When do I have a technology that can just help me jump from app to app to app, though?
That's a good question. I know ESPN kind of floated a trial balloon about, wanting to be kind of a gathering point or a repackager of all things sports related, so that you would be able to go to through a single app and look at a programming guide, and even while they're distinct and separate and not part of a bundle, you'd see all the sports there, and could could seamlessly switch from app to app to whatever program you want to see. It's going to be interesting to see, if everybody can get together in a room and actually agree how that's going to work and what ESPN is going to charge for providing that service. That's the only downside I see to that thing. But you're right, Paul. There's got to be something that's more cable or satellite like in order to allow us, people who like to watch 5 games at one time. We just can't really do that with the apps as they exist now. They're too clunky. And whereas with the bundle, you can just flip, and you're there. So that is something that needs to be taken care of from a technology standpoint to make it a lot more seamless and grazing friendly, we'll call it.
So, Bob, it sounds like if you are a cable lover, you're still going to have that option for the foreseeable future. If you're a streaming is the future type of person, you could have that option as well. And now the more direct consumer route. As far as if ESPN or when ESPN moves in this direction, I should say, and others perhaps do as well, what does ESPN being direct to consumer, what does that mean, boiling it down for the sports fan? How does life change, if at all, if that's the case?
Well, that's a good question, Craig. I really think if you want to continue with the bundle's going to continue to be there. And that's certainly, the simplest thing. There's a lot of people who don't see the value in the bundle, and they only have the bundle because they want ESPN. And for them, a direct-to-consumer streamed version of the same programming that's running on the bundle for ESPN, even if it's $30, might be a good decision for them. So I think down the road, what you're going to see, and I think you might see this first in things like some of these regional sports networks that are having a little bit of a business reset. It might be a little return to the old, where you used to have significant numbers on broadcast over-the-air television locally, and then you had an RSN or cable type package that was delivered as part of a bundle. And now you have a third element, which is going to be a streaming package that might be separate and above those other two packages. And, you've seen that, how the NFL has changed. And I think, adding the Prime Video piece and Google, YouTube TV taking the Sunday Ticket. I think the MLS is certainly probably the complete other end of the model, where they took everything and put it on streaming. Some of the new collegiate deals, the Big Ten has, exclusive football games and basketball games on Peacock. Some of the CBS games will also be simulcast on Paramount Plus. So you're seeing people spread out and reaching their viewers, their potential viewers and fans through all the different technologies. And it's really at this point too difficult to say, let's put all their eggs in one basket. But at this point, the bundle and the linear channels, be it ESPN, FS1, things like that, and along with the broadcast network, they still have the bulk of the top level sports. And in terms of total sports viewing, at this point, very little is done on streaming services, direct to consumer streaming services.
Yeah, I did a top 5 yesterday on why this is, and through no fault of their own, a really awkward time for the Pac-12 to be negotiating a TV deal because of all the different things going on in media around. And this is not just specific to them, but look, the NBA is coming up. The RSNs are, like you said, going through a business reset, and that's the nicest way I've heard that put, of what a lot of them are going through, and there's properties that people are scrambling to get up and on the air, like Major League Baseball and the NBA and the NHL. From that, you have things that aren't even involved in sports, a writer's strike that big companies are having to negotiate with now. All these different things are happening. Is it just kind of a nightmare time to be involved in negotiating any of these deals right now, no matter what entity you're with? Well,
there's been better times, that's for sure. I mean, I tell you, like you said, the NBA coming to market, and certainly they're going to want some streaming element and probably, some additional dollars from ESPN and Turner, and probably more over-the-air games. Everybody's going to want more over-the-air games as the bundle number shrinks. So that's something to keep an eye on. NASCAR is going to want an increase. I'm already hearing some numbers being floated around for the four new CFP playoff games in 24-25. So they're out there testing the water on those. And then you've got the CFP package for 26 and beyond. A lot of product out there coming to the market. And, it's probably, you've got buyers sitting here looking right in the face of a tough economic headwind, doing some layoffs, things like that. The strikes aren't hurting. The writer strike is the directors may go on strike next, and the talent may go on strike. Actors may go on strike after that. They could have all three out. And so I think what you're seeing is a lot of the media companies are really kind of rethinking their business and really looking at what and how much you intend to bid on certain things. You can't have everything. And there's things that you must have, and there's things that are nice to have. And then there's other things that you probably just are going to want to stay away from. So I think it's a tough time. And then layer that in this fact that a lot of people don't talk about is everybody just got a 80 to 90% increase on their NFL rights that goes into effect next year. And so you gotta factor that into the thing as well. And so you've got, properties trying to get high prices and high percentage increases. You're looking at a headwind on the distribution side because of people cutting the cord, and you've got economic issues. So it's, as far as the Pac-12, would there have been a lot better times? Yeah, but you just got to deal with the hand you're dealt, and I'm sure they'll come out with some, amalgamation of distribution sources that will, hopefully, keep the conference intact and moving forward.
And Bob, as you know, there's been this huge debate back and forth about streaming and volume of that and what that could look like for them, and who the heck even knows at this point. But you mentioned the importance that remains for over-the-air. Is that why you think maybe not so much online fans arguing, but that part of the streaming equation for anybody, the Pac-12 or otherwise, is that why that's such a hot topic? Because there is still, no matter what anybody wants to say about the future and how we watch, that over-the-air is still maintaining or will always maintain an importance as far as viewing goes?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's still, the one, form of distribution that's kind of ubiquitous. You can get it pretty much everywhere, and you either through the internet or by slapping an antenna up on your roof. I mean, granted, there's a lot of cities on the East Coast, things like that, where it's a difficult proposition. But, here in Arizona, it's so flat, I can practically get TV stations from Tucson with just an antenna. So, I think, the broadcast part, and you talk about the social media aspect, it's kind of like, well, we're so much better than you because we've got a lot of over the air games. We've got, broad distribution on, Fox and ABC and ESPN and CBS, NBC, whoever. And it's almost like they, if somebody comes up with a heavy streaming compliment, they're kind of looked down upon. But you got to look. I mean, pretty much every conference has some sort of a streaming deal with ESPN Plus.
Right.
I don't care who it is, and those that's grown, consistently grown. That ESPN Plus, I think, is up to like 25 million homes, 25 million homes, which is huge, and it's going to continue to grow because they're chipping away. They're continually getting additional product. Every deal they do has significant content for ESPN Plus. I mean, they basically took the NHL outer market package and just got rid of it and stuck it all on ESPN Plus. And it's been very successful for the league and for ESPN.
I remember when ESPN Plus I don't remember the exact date, but I remember I said, I'm not watching it. And then I did because I had to watch certain teams, like if Baylor was playing on ESPN Plus or a pretty good game in the Big 12. And there were some production issues with that. But are you surprised how fast it's grown? And is the quality what it needs to be if they're going to head into this future with what they're going to do?
I agree. I think the quality's definitely gotten better. I think a lot of it early on was, what we used to call third tier. And a lot of the third tier is contractually obligated to be produced by the school. So, the equipment and maybe the people producing and calling the games wasn't necessarily network level. but it's stuff that otherwise wouldn't have gotten on air. And so, I remember when we were doing the Big Ten Network, it's like, well, do we really want to do this? It kind of looks like, cable local access, some of these games that we're streaming, but who cares? The people who want to watch it, they don't care. They just want to see, their grandson, Jimmy, playing a soccer game for Baylor, against Texas Tech. And they don't really care what it looks like. So, but on top of that, ESPN has certainly started to devote more significant dollars as the subscribers have come along to increase the level of production. And I think you're seeing a higher higher level of games as well, especially when you look at the Big 12, because, unlike Pac12, ACC, SEC, and Big Ten, they don't have a conference channel. So that content that would, normally be on a conference channel is on the ESPN Plus Big 12 channel or whatever. I think that's what they call it. Yeah. And so you get probably in Big 12, you probably get a somewhat higher level of contest on ESPN Plus than you might in other conferences, because in those conferences it airs on their local channels or their local networks.
Bob Thompson again with us, media consultant, but also again a part of the Fox Sports for many years, a part of the Big Ten. Did you ever realize the Big Ten Network would be as massively important as it is, and financially what they are now when you first started that?
Well, we thought it had a pretty good chance. We had a rough first year, and it had some rather uncomfortable conversations. I actually ran into Mark Silverman, who was the original president of the Big Ten Network, yesterday here in Scottsdale. They're having the Fiesta Bowl activities this week, and I was down there, and we were chuckling about the very first year, and we had a rather uncomfortable conversation with Gordon Gee, who is the president of Ohio State. And after we walked out, Gene Smith, AD, said, "You guys better get this on the air. We're talking about leaving the conference." Mark goes, "Yeah, no pressure there, right?" So fortunately, those stories are great to talk about, but the network got great distribution, and it's proven to be certainly one of the forerunners in conference-owned channels. And everybody who was involved with it is extremely proud of it after 15 years now, I guess it's been. And they continue to do great stuff, and they do great things with the schools as far as getting students involved and bringing students to Chicago over the summer for internships. And it's just a great all-around asset for the conference. And I'd be interested to see what Tony Petitti, what kind of input he has and Fox have on it going forward. He's a TV guy and ran the MLB Network and Channel 2 in New York and CBS Sports. So he's certainly going to have some opinion as it relates to the Big Ten Network and what it can be going forward.
Bob, did you say Gordon Gee was the one that said that? And I'm not trying to make headlines or anything here, but he was the one that threatened to lead the conference, or said that in passing, or was it somebody else that you said?
No, it was Gene Smith, and he was joking. He was jokingly saying it.
Yeah.
It was just a big deal. In Ohio, you can't see Ohio State games. It's cause for, you don't want to be around, trust me.
Oh, yeah.
There was some tough meetings after that first year where Mark and I kind of did a road show and got everybody up to speed with what was going on and what we thought would happen. And fortunately, what we told them we thought would happen did happen. And we had full clearance for that second, before the kickoff of the second season.
Yeah, that's where the governor calls people and gets involved when Ohio State, even in the worst game could be in the season, if they didn't get to see it, those people will be mad. Bob, what do you think the future is for the RSNs?
Well, those are my babies, so you can't talk ill of your children, right? Like somebody told me that once. Look, they kind of overextended themselves. There's no doubt, and it was a great business, and they took advantage of the bundle, just like ESPN and Fox News and TNT and everybody else did. And it worked great right up until it didn't. And when it didn't real fast. And they had some debt issues they had to deal with based on the sale price from Disney to Sinclair, and they're working through that. I think that there's probably going to be some sort of reformulation of the business. And as I mentioned earlier, I think you're going to have some RSN still in business. In certain markets, it works real good. I mean, good luck telling the Yes Network that they got to shut down and not show Yankees games anymore and give the games back to MLB. It's just not going to happen, at least not without a huge payment. So I think what you get is kind of a little bit, like I said earlier, Back to the Future, where, maybe there's some over-the-air television to provide some reach locally, and it's something that's going to 100% of the people in the marketplace. Still a cable package or a bundle package or whatever you want to call it, some sort of a pay package. And then on top of that, for the people who don't want to play in those two arenas, there's a direct-to-consumer model that you pay $20, whatever it is, to get to have the stuff streamed directly into your house. It's going to be different though. It's tough. You have to remember that a lot of those RSNs, specifically the ones in Texas, Old Home Sports Entertainment, those were pay services at like $8 a month back in the late 80s when I was schlepping cable down there in Texas, and they didn't work. The business model didn't work, and ultimately, we changed them all to basic cable services, and that's when they took off. And again, that's why the bundle's so good for everybody, because you got 100% of the people paying for products that maybe only 20-25% people watch.
Bob, the stories have been out about Notre Dame. They negotiate pretty soon with NBC. NBC now part of the Big Ten and whatever else, all the other things they do. But there was a thought that they were, at least reported, they were asking for about $75 million a year, whether that was the starting number that might end up being 50 or whatever. You've been a part of that. You know their value, even though it's been 34 or 5 years since they won a national title. It's still Notre Dame. What value do you think they still have when it comes to if and when they negotiate with NBC again?
Well, as you said, it's still Notre Dame, so the value is tremendous. And, there's nobody that moves the needle, especially if they're halfway decent, like a Notre Dame does, countrywide, if you want to talk coast to coast. I think, 75 might be a stretch. You have to remember with Notre Dame, you're only getting the home games.
Right.
So you're buying a half a package. And the other games, they've got the ACC, hook up and things like that. So 75 might be, plus there's no basketball. That's in the ACC as well. So 75 might be a bit of a push to me for 5 to 6 home games a year, but they're going to get a raise. There's no doubt about it. I mean, they've played this well, and the deal they're in is, been going on for a few years. So they're due for a increase just because of the length of time their deal's been. And then you combine that with the, inflationary factors as it relates to collegiate rights. But, and they also have that kind of that, carrot and cart thing going on here where do we go to a conference or not, and so if the NBC, if it goes to the Big Ten, you're going to be one of, 3 guys picking at Notre Dame games. If you could somehow keep these, it probably works really good with your primetime package of the Big Ten network where you use, one or the other for lead-ins or whatever. And you don't always have Notre Dame games every Saturday, but you always have Big Ten every Saturday. So you can marry the two pretty well. And I think it's going to be NBC's to lose, and my guess is they want to keep it. Is it going to be $75 million? I don't know if it's that high, but they're going to get an increase over the supposed $14-15 million they're getting now.
One more question.
Well, I actually had to. Go ahead.
I got time,
Okay.
guys. I got nothing going on.
You are retired. Or at least you're trying to be until we keep talking to you. But
well, I mean, Notre Dame's got the value, as you said, and I'm sure as you have seen them, and they are oft mentioned probably as much as anybody as far as one day they're going to be forced into joining a conference. But do you at least see for that kind of a conversation that there are signs that eventually that could be a reality? Or are there at least things in place where that could be a reality? Or are they entirely bulletproof in your mind as far as their independence and not ever being forced into any type of a situation?
The only thing that I can see for Notre Dame is, are they going to be able to get, make enough good games, right?
Mm-hmm.
When conferences, if they go to 11 league games or 11 conference games, things like that, the opportunities for Notre Dame to have, they got to cobble together 6 games or 7 games, maybe 6 games against, other conferences who are playing 12. They can't play all home, so they're going to have to figure out a way to fill up and create a good schedule that the networks are going to want to continue to get. And that's always been the issue with people who are independents. And that's why so many of the independents have ceased to be independent. They couldn't get good games. And so, to the extent Notre Dame can continue to have good games, they continue to play, the USCs and the Stanfords and people like that. I think it's extremely important for them in their kind of efforts to remain independent. But I think if anybody can stay independent, it's Notre Dame. But the flip side is, if Notre Dame decides they want to get in the conference, they can go in whatever one they want.
No doubt about that. Yeah, I love the clarity there on that's right though. I mean, they could get scheduled out, blocked out scheduling in all theory. But Bob, leave it to this. You've been great, and I know we're all kind of over the Pac-12 situation at this point, and we're all ready for that to be announced. But just for the people out there and kind of a progress update. There was the lobbying back and forth in the media, president saying this and all that. Where we stand right now, I know there's reports that the can's been kicked down the road a little bit further as they continue to negotiate. Is anything in your mind substantially changed from even a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, as far as where we sit with them and their negotiations?
No, nothing that I've heard. I mean, I continue to maintain that, Fox is unlikely, and it's probably going to be, ESPN for some and some streaming entity for others. Maybe they sublicense a few other games out to who knows. But I don't think anything's really changed. I think they're probably just trying to get the thing over the finish line. The one thing that has changed is you have seen some of the schools come out and actually talk. And I don't know if that was at the request of the conference or they just felt they needed to do it. But you've heard from CU, you've heard from Utah, you've heard from Arizona and Arizona State. And they've all been basically the same thing is, we're not going anywhere until we see the deal. And if so, if that's the case, once the deal gets in front of you, if it's good, you're pretty much going to stay. If it's not, you're going to go look somewhere else. And that's where we are now. That's where we've probably been for months. And that's fine. I guess they've got a whole nother year to go with the current deal. So there's nothing that is, there's no huge time pressure right now. I think I know a lot of people would like to see it get done, if only because it's probably the key to some other moves that are going to happen down the road. And that's the only kind of trepidation I think everybody has is how that delay might affect that process of dominoes that could happen after that deal is announced.
Is that if ESPN's the linear, and you mentioned Fox, and we had something the other day, and we've had Patrick Crakes, him, Jim Williams, we've had them on to discuss this too, but if it's ESPN is the one spot that's left for them, that Saturday night game, is that where that would fit?
Well, ESPN can do it. I mean, certainly the Saturday night is one of those spots. ESPN also has this other method that they use, and they haven't used it as much as they used to, but that's to take ABC and regionalize it.
Yeah.
And so the West Coast would get it, the game on ABC, and maybe the rest of the country, the game's on ESPN2 or ESPNU. And then the central part of the country might be getting a Big 12 game. And, and so they have, because of how they can use their broadcast network, every broadcast window they have is you can multiply it by 4 because you can regionalize and deliver games only to a certain part of the country. Granted, you have to, you're paying for extra productions, multiple productions, but there is ways for them or Fox and even some of the cable guys, you can regionalize your feeds. And so you could certainly show games in windows other than the late window on ABC or ESPN, without affecting, the other things you have. I can't imagine they'd feel too bad if instead of airing an ACC game on the West Coast, they aired a, Oregon Stanford game or something like that. I mean, certainly would draw probably better than Duke, Georgia Tech. So, they've got some ways to play around it, but yeah, I think ESPN is going to be the linear guy. ESPN/ABC is the linear guy, with ESPN doing most of the heavy lifting on it, and then some streaming outlet. And that's the big question: is who and how much.
If in fact they go to regionalize, will that affect the other conferences who are locked in with TV deals and their visibility? Would that cut into their exposure?
Well, it's depending on how they handle it. I mean, what's been done in the past is, as I mentioned, it's so like on the West Coast, the game would be on ABC, but the rest of the country, it would be on ESPN2. And then in the West Coast, there'd be a different game on ESPN2, which is like a game that's maybe in the Big 12 territory or the ACC territory. So you're still giving coast to coast distribution. It just may not all be on broadcast television. It might be partially broadcast in the home territory and cable outside the territory.
Bob, it's great to have you. We appreciate it. One of the things that we have enjoyed the most since a lot of this realignment and discussions with even Texas OU, then USC, UCLA, is getting your knowledge, Patrick and Jim and others. It's been really, really eye-opening and very educational. We appreciate your time.
My pleasure, guys. Have a good week.
Go hit them straight. Bob Thompson.
Try.
Bob Thompson from Arizona with us with yet another segment of just great stuff. We appreciate that very much. When we come back, we're not done with